Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous day already. I'm a couple minutes early, which is rare, but there's a lot going on for the next few days. So I wanted to get on here and get started. This is the final part of a 4-part series that was inspired by my day before 4th of July video about being a firework or being the firework. If you're just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I'm a mom, a nana, girlfriend, studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, an online boutique owner, jazzercise fanatic, line dance fanatic, runner, lots and lots of hats, part-time program director for my local affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. So lots of things, and all in some way, shape, or form just about related to wellness or mental health. I started Wellness Wednesday because it was on my heart to share pieces of my journey and learn things from my journey in battling depression and anxiety for most of my life. And I learned quickly that, and one of the reasons I love NAMI is because peer support is really helpful and it works. And sharing with each other our ideas and the things that we do to make things better that work for us can sometimes inspire or help others. So I love getting on here and sharing what I've learned because I love to learn, and then hearing your tips and input as well. So I always encourage you to interact, ask questions, drop comments. We do try to keep things politics free as much as we can and as positive as possible. So again, the day before 4th of July was a Wednesday, and I did an overview on how to be a firework, and it was so good that by popular demand, I broke it down into a 4-part series because there were 8 components of being a firework. It was a lot of information, and it's been a lot of information, but it's been a really awesome series. And I hope that if you've been watching, you have found it helpful. And if you're just now stumbling on this, I will drop the link to last week's video in the comments, and then just let me know, drop a comment or send me a message if you want to see the other ones, and I'll either tag you or I'll send you the link or whatever we need to do to get you hooked up. But know that these videos are always on my Facebook page on the videos tab. You can go back and look at any of them. You can stop them. You can rewind. You can forward, whatever, once they're posted. So like, for example, this series has had a lot of activities and a lot of suggestions and challenges, and I encourage you to go back and check those out and do those things because I think that you will find them helpful. So why fireworks? Fireworks are a metaphor for living a vibrant, impactful, and inspiring life. And throughout this series, and if you watch my Wellness Wednesday on a regular basis, you're probably hearing some recurrent themes or repetitions. Listen, just like kindergartners, we all learn best through repetition, right? So there are a lot of, wellness is such a broad umbrella that there are a lot of overlaps and repetitions in all of the things we talk about. You'd actually be amazed if you've not watched before how much certain things overlap all of the time. So today we're going to discuss those final 2 components of the firework video, and this is the final part of this series. So let's get started. So today we're going to talk about embracing moments of stillness and celebrating diversity. Again, the original video was 8 components, and they've been broken down 2 at a time in the last 4 weeks. So fireworks burst forth with energy, but they also have moments of stillness before and after the display, which symbolizes the need for balance. And I forgot to say, if you're here, let me know you're here. If I don't say anything or respond to your comments or questions, it's just because I don't always see all the things, but I will afterwards. But definitely let me know you've been here. Say hi, hit hashtag replay in the comments, whatever's applicable. Okay, so back to embracing moments of stillness. Fireworks burst forth with energy, but also have moments of stillness before and after the display, symbolizing the need for balance. So how do we make the most of this stillness? How do we embrace the stillness? Well, we start with reflection. Reflection is important because self-reflection, and I've mentioned this before, allows you to gain a deeper understanding of yourself, your values, and your beliefs. One of the things that is discussed a lot, I'm studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. currently. And one of the things that's discussed a lot is the importance for a counselor or a counselor in training is what I'm called, to be self-aware and do a lot of self-reflection to make sure that we're not giving into biases, and that we're taking care of ourselves, so that if we reach a point where our cup is too full, we can see our own therapist to make sure that we're not doing anything that's detrimental to ourselves or people we're counseling. So reflection is super important, helps us gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, our values, and our beliefs. And it helps us become more aware of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, which also helps us to make more conscious choices that align with what we really want and what we really believe. So I have a great example of this. Probably one of the first steps to my personal awareness of what I was in control of and how I was feeling and the way I was behaving was when a friend to me said that she wasn't responsible for my feelings. Now, I'm going to disclaimer this a couple of times. The statement in of itself was profound because I was a people pleaser, and I was frequently that person that said, you made me feel like this, you made me angry, you this, you that. And I've since learned to use I statements. But there was a couple of sides to this particular coin. The statement in of itself is profound because while it took me a while, that was the beginning of me learning that I'm responsible for how I feel. I'm responsible for how I react, and I am responsible for what I do, but I'm not responsible for how other people respond to it. Now, with that said, this particular individual at the time kind of used this statement as like a blanket invitation to just kind of be a butthole, for lack of a better way to put it. And say whatever they were thinking without having any regard for how other people felt. And that's really not what the statement means. It means that if you are staying true to yourself and you are being kind, or at least firm, good morning, Miss Paula, that if you're staying true to yourself, you're being kind. There's something, for those that know, I don't talk about religion a lot, but I am a believer. There's a spot in the Bible that says something like, and I never quote it exactly because I don't have the right words, but speak the truth with love. If you're being kind and you're not setting out just to aggravate people and just be mean, then you can say how you feel and you can do the things that you need to do to align with yourself, such as saying no and not being as available. And you don't have to feel responsible for other people's feelings. It's not your fault if they misunderstand it or misperceive it. It's kind of hard. I'm struggling to explain it, obviously, but just like you aren't responsible for how somebody else feels if you're not being just malicious or just saying whatever you want or doing whatever you want just because. I think you know what I'm talking about. We're talking about intent to aggravate, intent to be malicious versus doing what you need to do that aligns with your goals. And that can be a big difference, but you don't have to be responsible for other people's feelings. We want to be, we're taught to be, and that's okay to a degree. But when other people's feelings and other people's opinions start to interfere with our well-being, then that's the time to stop and recognize that we are the only ones responsible. A great example is if somebody says something, social media, there's so much going on social media right now, but if somebody says something you don't agree with, you have choices. You can not let it bother you. You can keep scrolling, or you can respond and engage in an argument that's going to probably get a little bit out of control and hurt your feelings anymore. So which choice would you rather make? And that's the kind of responsibility I'm talking about. And again, that was the kind of the beginning of me learning that there were a lot more things about my life that I was responsible for instead of blaming others or holding others responsible. So those words, I'm not responsible for your feelings, don't hold me responsible for your feelings. While they may have been a little intended a little differently on that day, they were the beginning of the changes. Yes, keep scrolling. They were the beginning of the changes of my mindset. So how can we be more self-aware? How can we be more aware of our thoughts and our emotions and our behaviors? Well, I'm a huge fan of the minimum weight rule. Most of the time I apply it to myself. If I see something that upsets me, get an email that upsets me, a message, whatever, I will wait. I will stand down and I will force myself to wait to respond. Because 9 times out of 10, if I respond right away, I'm probably responding out of anger. And so I'll go back and I'll reread things, or I'll step back and I'll digest a little bit before I respond or react. And that's gone a long way. But another way, kind of a guided reflection activity for you, if you happen to bring a notebook and want to write this down or have a pen handy, if not, you can go back to this video and look at it again, is what they call the 3-2-1 activity. When you think about this series, for example, the 3-2-1 activity is to write down 3 things you've learned, 2 things you'd like to know more about, and 1 question that you still have. Now, once you've done this, you can share it in the comments if you're comfortable. You don't have to be. And then the next step, I use this series as an example, but then the next step would be to think about a recent experience that you could have learned from, did learn from, should have learned from, whatever the case may be, and apply that 3-2-1. 3 things you learned from that experience, 2 things you'd like to know more about, and 1 question that you still have. And this is an act of guided reflection. Yes, exactly, Paula. Reactive versus proactive. Words that I've repeated many times to myself and to others. But like I said, apply that 3-2-1 method to a recent experience you've learned from, and it will help you. It's kind of a guided reflection to help you become more aware of how you're thinking, how you're reacting, how you're feeling, all of those things. It's always good to reflect. Sometimes I've been known to reflect without even trying. My brain just kind of processes and reprocesses back here in the background. And then all of a sudden, like a month later, it'll spit something out about something that I think I've forgotten about, and a light bulb will go on and I'll be like, oh. So reflection is very healthy as long as you don't overdo it. There's a fine line between reflection and overthinking, and I can ride that line like a bucking bronco, let me tell you. Okay, so the next part of this embracing moments of stillness is balance. So what does that even mean? We hear a lot about balance. And there are some schools of thought that say balance is very important. That's what we should be seeking instead of happiness, because balance will bring happiness. And other schools of thought that are like, there is no such thing as balance. It's pretty simple. There are some people that believe that not everything in your life can be going perfectly at the same time. If one thing is going really well, something else is going to be tanking. And I guess a lot of that probably depends on your attitude and how much you're self-aware. So, I lost my spot. Balance. So generally it means satisfaction or fulfillment in several important domains with little or no negative effect on other domains. So prioritizing relevant and valuable tasks, setting boundaries. This is a hard one for us. Letting go of control, for most of us anyway. Letting go of control, another hard one for most of us. Integrating the pieces of our life together. Like I'm famous for compartmentalizing. You know, this is work stuff over here. This is personal stuff over here. This is business stuff over here. And sometimes they have to integrate. And my life has been more balanced since I realized that I can't just always separate those things, even though I still kind of revert to training and try to. So setting goals, self-care, these are all ways that we can help to find balance. So a balance assessment here, an activity that you can do to work on this, is assess your current level of balance, and where you can adjust. Share if you're willing, but where can you adjust? Where are you kind of doing too much and going overboard, whereas this part of your world is getting neglected? Maybe you're working too much and your personal life's getting neglected, or vice versa. Whatever that means to you, do a little self-assessment, and see if there's a way that you can prioritize more things that are more important to you. If there's things that are kind of sucking the energy out of you that you're paying too much attention to. That guided reflection is a good way to start. And then the most important part of embracing stillness is recharging. Now, That means doing rest things and doing things that help make you feel like you. And y'all know this is my soapbox. This recharging, relaxing self-care is my soapbox. It is really important that we take care of ourselves. Just like on an airplane where the stewardess tells you, or I'm sorry, it's called a flight attendant now. I'm trying to be better. But where the flight attendant tells you that even if you have children, if they're in a situation where the oxygen mask drops, you need to put it on yourself before you can help anybody else. That's the same idea before with self-care. Another term quote that's frequently used is you cannot pour from an empty cup. So self-care is really important. Self-care means a little something different for everyone. And I, in the process of talking about self-care on several different occasions, I actually did a video on a speech that I gave, or a talk that I gave to some kids ages 10 to 17. And this has kind of fleshed itself out on its own, which is the 3 stages of feeding. So a place to start if you're looking for ways to take better care of yourself are the 3 stages of feeding. 1, feed your body. Healthy food, healthy diet, plenty of water. Stay away from the things that you know make you feel crappy. Like in my case, if I drink too much coffee, I know it amps up my anxiety. There's certain things that when I eat, I just feel overfull and bloated, and sometimes like I've been hit by a Mack truck, so I tend to avoid those things even if I love them. So feeding your body goes a long way towards helping blood sugar levels, endorphin levels, all of that to help you operate better, both physically and mentally. So it's not just about your body. When you're feeding your body, you're actually feeding your mind, which is the next stage of feeding, which is feeding your mind. So besides the feeding your body, you want to constantly be learning new things, self-reflecting, kind of evolving, if you will, because when we stop learning and when we stop growing, we become stagnant. And that is, in my opinion, one of the most dangerous things that can happen. So feeding your mind, because our brains are plastic. As long as we continue learning, these can keep changing and rewiring and all of that stuff. And it's super cool. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to change my mindset in my mid to late 30s, early 40s. So there's a lot more research being done on neuroplasticity. Oh, I know, 50-cent word. And I don't know enough about it yet to really dig into it as a topic. But it is amazing. And what it essentially means is that if we're willing, we can actually change the way we're wired, because our brains are plastic. So feeding our brain by continuing to learn and try new things is an amazing way to find that balance, find that recharge, and continue that self-reflection and evolution. And then, of course, the 3rd stage being to feed your heart and soul. By heart and soul, what I generally refer to is feed your heart by talking kindly to yourself. I've had this conversation many times. How we speak to ourselves in the mirror and in our heads, that's the voice we hear most often. So never ever speak to yourself in a way that you wouldn't speak to somebody that you love the most. So that's how you feed your heart and how you feed your soul, is by giving back to your community, your family, whatever that looks like. So those are the 3 stages of feeding, and that's a huge part of that recharging. A lot of times helping others, or helping out in our community. Just simple volunteer work can take our focus off of ourselves if we're struggling, and make us feel better. So it's giving, but it's kind of selfish in a way, but I don't think it's selfish in a bad way. You know what I mean? So that is part of that embracing moments of stillness. Know when we need to recharge, do the things that we need to do to recharge, feed ourselves, take care of ourselves, and make sure we're reflecting regularly on our thoughts and our feelings, and how, like I said, reflecting without overthinking, and how we are handling things and what aligns with our goals, so that we can make sure that we're not giving too much energy to something that just absolutely does not align with our beliefs or our goals and is sucking the life out of us. So part 2 of being a firework today, the final part of this series, is celebrating diversity. Embracing diversity enriches our lives and our communities. And it's important to appreciate and celebrate the differences in people. Now, to be clear, a lot of us cringe now because the word diversity has been used so much politically that a lot of us just cringe and we shut our ears off. We shut our ears off, we shut our brains off when we hear the word. So let's be clear, diversity doesn't have to be political. We are all diverse. Every single one of us. It doesn't matter what color our skin is, what color our eyes are, what country of origin we come from. We are all diverse because the word diverse is simply different. We are all different. And it would be a really boring, weird, lame world if we were all the same, right? So we should embrace that diversity, because if we were all exactly the same, that's my opinion. And we've always been taught that. We've always been taught that that it's not necessarily a good idea to be just like everybody else. When we're growing up, we compare ourselves to everything. And sometimes as adults, we don't grow out of that. We continue to compare ourselves and try to emulate what we see that we think is embraced. But we are each diverse in our own ways, all based on our upbringing. It can be based on upbringing. It can be based on a lot of things, just a lot of things. I lost my spot again, and you guys know I need my notes because there's so much information here. Diversity is based on not just color of skin or country of origin, but it includes, here's what I was looking for: experiences, disabilities, and I kind of drew a blank, health issues, childhood upbringing. There's all kinds of things that make us diverse. So an activity here is to reflect on the diverse people in your life and the unique perspectives they bring. Good or bad, in your opinion, just the unique perspectives that they bring. And then think about how you can appreciate and celebrate those differences and share if you're comfortable. I know on occasion there have been people that when I first met them, I was put off by them. I was like, what the heck is up with this person? And then I've ended up learning a lot from them. So like I said, diversity includes a lot of things way beyond what's discussed on a political level. And it's important. For me, I enjoy embracing those differences. I enjoy learning different things about different people because it does give me a different perspective. It adds to my personal experiences so that I can grow as a person. Now, this also includes an inclusive mindset. Celebrating differences and celebrating diversity means having an inclusive mindset and creating inclusive environments. I saw a post the other day about respect being earned and that nobody is entitled to respect unless they earn it. And I agree, but I disagree. So I'm going to respectfully agree to disagree. And the reason that I disagree is that, again, as a believer, I believe that every human on this planet is entitled to a basic form of respect because they are a child of God. That's just my belief. Now, basic respect. Are there a lot of other levels of respect that need to be earned from me? Absolutely. And I think that's the case with any of us. But I do believe that anybody standing in front of me, again, good morning, Miss Kayla, again, regardless of color of skin, eyes, disability, whatever, I do believe that every single one of those people deserves a basic amount of minimum respect for me. So I would but diversity means that person can have that opinion and I can have a different opinion. And like I said earlier, I can keep scrolling, but that opinion can cause me to reflect and think about if there's something to be learned there, or just not, and it doesn't necessarily merit a reaction. So an inclusive mindset means you promote inclusivity, such as active listening, showing empathy, and being open to different perspectives. And that's probably the biggest way that we can celebrate diversity. And then a simple example here of what I'm saying is busy restaurant. There's a large table. Restaurant's pretty much full, but there's a large table. What comes to mind actually is a restaurant that Eric and I were in, I believe, had a big table, and it was one of those big wooden tables with bar stools. It was probably a brewery, I'm not going to lie. But that was the only table they had left when we came in, so we were two people sitting at the end of this table that could seat 6 or 8. And it probably wasn't the first time, and if it was, it probably won't be the last time where we saw another couple standing there waiting to be seated and said to the server, why don't you just let them sit here at this end of the table? We don't have a problem sharing. And that's a very, very simple layman's example of having an inclusive mindset. No, we didn't know them. We had an opportunity to possibly make new friends, or we could just sit there and continue to have our own conversations. But having that's a very simple example of having an inclusive mindset, being open to different perspectives, helping others if you have the ability to, like in a situation like that, regardless of, we didn't know them from Adam. I mean, we didn't. But they were standing there looking like they needed a place to sit, and we had room. So why not share? It depends on the person. But if we have that inclusive mindset, to me, that says a lot versus, being in high school when we couldn't find a place to sit because everybody was like, you can't sit with us. And that may be why I tend to think that way now. And that's okay. But having an inclusive mindset is very, very important to celebrating diversity, enriching ourselves and our communities, because it exposes us to a broad range of thoughts, perspectives, experiences, and so on. Okay, so my inclusivity challenge for you is be friendly to everyone every day. Just be friendly as much as you can. Stand up for kindness and basic respect, and avoid assumptions, because a lot of times we make assumptions. Although I think it's settling down now. For years, people made assumptions, and some still do. I've even been guilty of it a couple of times when we see people whose bodies are covered in tattoos. Well, my perspective has changed. I now have a couple of tattoos. I still keep mine in places where they're very well hidden, but I have family members that have quite a few. And it doesn't bother me anymore. And I look past them. I find myself more curious about why they have the tattoos they do. That's the way that if you're just friendly to everybody and you're open-minded and you're open to unique perspectives, that you can kind of change your mindset in that department. So again, my challenge to you is to be friendly to everyone, stand up for kindness and basic respect, and avoid assumptions. And if you have an opportunity to do that, comment if you're willing, or send me a message and let me know how it made you feel. So, another way to celebrate uniqueness is to celebrate individuality within the context of the diversity that enriches our lives. And here's where I just want to kind of talk about, and like I already said, more diversity means more ideas, more perspective, more experience. The more we expose ourselves to others and others' backgrounds and experiences, the more we can learn and grow. But I wanted to give some like real life examples that are some are common names and some are not. So one of them is Dawnette Moniz Rayom. When I was in my cultural diversity class that I had to take last term, I learned about the Native American population, and I learned a lot of things I didn't know, but I had always been curious, so it was a great opportunity. And Dawnette Moniz, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, Moniz Rayom was the first Native American featured in a magazine. And she was featured in 2016 in Teen Vogue. And she was able to use that platform to launch her advocacy for cultural pride. Now, we hear a lot of things in the media. We hear about a lot of different pride things in association with a lot of different ethnic backgrounds. One thing we rarely hear about is the Native Americans. Everyone, the point here is that everyone can have pride in their background. Good morning, Miss Peggy. Everyone can have pride in their background, regardless of what their background is. There are facets that we can be proud of and that we can claim. So she's a really good one. And what I'll do is I'll drop a link to the video that I watched about Dawnette, because there was a whole series, and I watched the first one. And I just think, I follow her on Instagram now. I think she's amazing. And I think you'll enjoy her story. It's a fairly short video, but she is an example of how diversity can bring more ideas, more perspectives, and more experience. And now she is, like I said, she's using her modeling career as a way to bring awareness to the Native American culture and help bring her own people back to that culture, which I think is pretty stinking cool. So other unique stories that might surprise you. You might already know. I'm not a big one on pop culture. Honestly, I don't follow a lot of celebrities. So some of these things you may already know, some you may not. Helen Keller, older pop culture, I know. She was deaf and dumb. She was also the first deaf and dumb person to earn a bachelor's degree. Was Helen Keller diverse? Most people don't think of Helen Keller when they think of diversity, but she had profound physical disability. and she overcame it, and she embraced her uniqueness, and she became the first person to earn a bachelor's degree. And she was an example for a lot of people going forward. So again, unique stories and examples of people who were very diverse for various reasons. And not only did they overcome that diversity and use that diversity, not only did they overcome that diversity, but they then in turn used it to accomplish great things, not just for them, but for other people like them. Another one, here's where we get into a little bit of pop culture. Again, I don't follow pop culture. I'm not a Swiftie. Don't tell anybody. But Taylor Swift, she has built a career. I've listened to some of her songs. I'm not a big follower. Taylor Swift has built a career around being an outsider. And while this particular clip says, while her friendship circle is one of the most envied in the world, she struggled to fit in when she was in school, as did I. I might even feel a little more empathetic towards Taylor now and be more curious to pay attention to the lyrics of her songs. So that's an example. She had a diverse upbringing. Diverse meaning if you were really popular in school and you were the cheerleader and dating the quarterback, and I know that's very stereotypical. Sorry. It was still a thing when I was in school. Then Taylor's background, Taylor's upbringing, Taylor's childhood experiences are very diverse from yours. And that's the point I'm trying to get across here is diverse doesn't have to have a political connotation. Diverse is a thing, and we are all it, if that makes sense. So that was Taylor. Now, another one that I found interesting that I didn't know about is Beyonce. Beyonce is on my list of diverse people because she actually wrote Bootylicious because she had gained some weight and she was under a lot of pressure to be thin. This was in an interview with Shape magazine. I've never ever thought of Beyonce as fat, and that's not, or as overweight. I don't know if that's a good word to say, but I've thought of her as curvier than me. I've never been particularly curvy, y'all. I'm just saying, straight up and down. But I had no idea that Bootylicious, which is a song I think most of us have enjoyed at some point in time or another, she actually wrote in response to this way she was feeling. And it was a celebration of women's bodies and women's curves. So I thought that was awesome. And had I not been open to learning about this, I would never know that. And I might be making assumptions when I hear certain songs or when I look at certain people, right? And then my final example is a gentleman named Damon West, who I've actually seen speak in person. I've read his book. It's called Be a Coffee Bean. I'll drop a link for that too, or The Coffee Bean. I recently shared it with a friend of mine, and hopefully it seems like it's making a positive impact. But speaking of diversity, this gentleman started out as a Division I quarterback, suffered an injury, ended up using drugs to cope with his injury and his loss of his position in football, got hooked on amphetamines, and ended up a felon. He ended up in prison. He spent 7 years in prison, and he now has an MS. Like I said, I can't remember all this stuff. He now has an MS in criminal justice. He is a best-selling author, and he has more motivational speaking engagements than any other motivational speaker to date. That's pretty stinking impressive. So once again, a totally different background than anything I've ever experienced, anything that a lot of us have experienced, but he used it to level up and to help others like him and to give others inspiration. So these are reasons why we need to embrace our own uniqueness and embrace the uniqueness of others and celebrate diversity. Okay, so I started a little early, and I'm trying to keep it tight here. So in the last, my last activity for you is to reflect on how diversity has positively impacted on you and your community, and share if you're comfortable so we can celebrate each other. If you're not comfortable, you can send me a message or you can just keep it to yourself, whatever, but reflect on how diversity, the differences between you and other people in your circle, in your, what's the word I'm looking for? Struggling to make words today. Your acquaintance circle, your friendship circle, your family circle. Look at how different you are from the others in that circle and find ways to appreciate, recognize how positively it's impacted you, or your community, find ways to appreciate and celebrate that. Okay, so in the past 4 weeks, we've talked about 8 components of being a firework, which included embracing our uniqueness, shining brightly, making an impact, spreading joy and wonder, overcoming challenges, creating connections, and finally, embracing stillness and celebrating diversity. These are all important components. They can all be applied to just about any part of life. But I encourage you, if it was a lot of information and you're like, oh my gosh, I need more time with this, I need a notebook, they're all there. Go back, review, watch, pause, do whatever you need to do to take notes. You can save these videos by hitting the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner and saving them so you can go back to them later. But they're always here on my Facebook page under the videos tab. And I will drop last week's link in the comments. But review, take notes, and even if you just find one component to start, to begin to implement, hey, Eric, then it's progress, right? You don't have to do all the things at once, just one at a time. Just give it a shot one at a time. Like I said, these videos will be here. If you can't find it, you go looking for it in 2 weeks and you can't find it, send me a message, say, hey, Donna, I was looking for this. I will send you the link. It's not, or I will tag you or whatever. It's not a big deal. But most importantly, if you found any of them helpful, if you think they'll inspire somebody else or help somebody else, please feel free to share. If you want to share with somebody, but you don't want to necessarily single them out and make a Facebook announcement, then you can share to their messenger and nobody has to know. And most importantly, above all else, go out and be a firework. Whatever you do, find one component to implement, go out and be a firework. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope you have a fabulous day. I hope you're going to go explode your firework colors everywhere and show everybody how passionate and unique and amazing you are. And I will see you next week. I'm still toying with some topics, but I'm about to have a 4-day in-person experience with fellow students. So I'm sure there's going to be a few things that are going to pop up from that might be worth talking about. In any case, I'll see you next week for episode number 95. Let me know if you need help finding something, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a happy Wednesday and be well.